Hey, so I saw this video today, and it's by a dude named Mark Vicente, which, if anybody knows, he was one of the first guys. Him and his wife was one of the first ones elected and the first ones to pull out of the Nexium cult. If anybody knows anything about that, which they have a show about that called The Vow. It's not a show, but it's a documentary, and it shows the trial of Keith Raniere and all that. But I watched most of it, and it was a very big thing. They made lots of money. They did a bunch of self-help stuff and blah blah blah. And they got the girl Allison something from the chick from Smallville. They got her involved in it, and she actually became what got them busted. Was she actually fell into tasted the Kool-Aid of it. And where I'm going with this is we're going to talk a little bit about narcissism and awakening to that stuff, you know. Yeah. The awakening you go through going through narcissistic abuse, and I'm comparing it to this because narcissistic abuse and where am I going? Narcissism. Narcissistic abuse and cult behavior, it's one and the same. You know, you're dealing with the same type of mindsets and things like that. So I'm excited about it because I've watched, I know a lot of the people that's in it. There's top level psychologists and all the people that I've learned from, and there's also a bunch of narcissists, self-aware narcissists in there, and they're exposing this stuff, you know, and they're exposing tactics. But where I'm going with it is the awakening from it. For me, learning all the stuff, all the psychology and stuff behind it was, you know, a great thing. And I think it's great for anybody. I think it's a great subject for people that don't know. That it's very, I think it's a very big key to understanding spiritual warfare, understanding people's behavior, their motives, their tactics, and it's a very good roadmap for navigating through life, navigating through people, and understanding traps not to fall into, things like that. There's some downsides to it. For me, it's you know, and this goes back to another high level psychologist, you know, that ain't even around anymore, which is Carl Jung. He talks about not just to talk about narcissists, but also people that, you know, use the word empath or things like that. Codependents, which are people that fall prey because they have their own toxic behaviors, their own toxic motives to deal with a narcissist. That makes them subject to deal with a narcissist or a psychopath or something like that. So, and one of the thoughts for me is like when we talk about psychopathy, I'm like, the way to distinguish the difference from it's very to distinguish the difference from a narcissist, psychopath. Like a psychopath, in my mind, I'm like, don't they have to be a narcissist too? Like basically, just maybe higher level. I don't know. I just know the toxic traits. I know I've been around them all. I've been to prison, blah blah blah. So but for me now, it's like it's. I don't want to say it's a fun experience. I've had some fun with it, just because it's like it's exhausting at the same time, but it's also like it's almost boring now. I have some boring times. Like when you can predict patterns of behavior and people's, when you can predict people's behavior and see the motive behind it. There's no. It really burns you out, and you look at the world through a whole different lens. And it's a lot for the better. I believe God is totally behind it. I believe everybody should be awakened to it, especially if they have self-awareness and high narcissistic traits, whatever it is. I believe that if you can get that awakening and if it could grab a hold of you and you get that interested in it, you really have to experience it. It's kind of, I think, to understand it, you have to be a deep thinker. You have to be very intuitive, I would say. But for that awakening to happen, I think for you to truly appreciate it, you have to go through some real live horrible experience with this narcissist or this cult. So to understand like what's really happening and understand the motives behind comments and things like that's been made throughout your life. One of the big things for me, like, was with my anger. I used to be, I'm going to call all kinds. I'm going to call out anything that sounds retarded. Anything, all the nonsense, I'm going to call it out. The words that don't add up, the things in your story that don't add up, I would call that stuff out, and I would, argue about it, whatever it is. And for me, learning that, I never understood. I had the best responses that a narcissist would love because I was toxic in my own way, and I'm going to fight to the death over this stuff. I got my own narcissistic traits. But when I really experienced this and the awakening that comes from it, that's what I want to say about the video. I think it's great, man. And Mark Vicente, him and his wife, they pulled out. And what got them busted in the thing was the chick Allison became, Keith Raniere used her as the head of a woman's group, which really had a dark, sicker motive. And they started, they wanted to gain collateral. So that collateral, which that is that's the first thing a cult will do. They want to gain collateral over someone, And what they would do is they would have these people tell lies or the truth of things that had happened to them in their life, and then they would have them write it on paper. And if they didn't have nothing good enough, they'd have them lie. But it would look bad for them if it was ever used against them. So these girls was sworn to secrecy, not to tell anybody about, like freaking like Fight Club. Nobody talks about Fight Club. And in time, the motive would be, hey, they would be giving them dares to do, like, hey, and then it would always end up like, hey, I dare you to go sleep with Keith, the ringleader dude, and yeah, and then the guy Mark, he found out about this stuff and pulled him and his wife. His wife pulled out actually before he did because they wanted to believe this dude was pretty smart. But they was all into weird stuff also, like worldly healing and yoga and guru crap. And that's how this thing happened. But they pulled out of it. Now Mark, throughout his journey, pulling out of that, he's like, he was very gullible to a lot of stuff, man. He was, and he wanted his own gains. He wanted to grow in businesses. This place was very business. They taught business. Man, it did so much stuff. Just go look it up. The Nexium Call. And so for me, like, I deal with people, like, and I still find myself, some of the strengths that should come from it is boundaries. I still struggle with boundaries. I still, like, I know there's things that I'm not supposed to tolerate, and I still do, I still find myself tolerating some things and not calling it out because, to cause arguments, but if I'm pushed far enough, I'll call it out. And so some of the downsides, is not being able to really get close to people, questioning everything, that's got its hindrances. When I say I've had fun with it, I've been with, after learning all that stuff, I've been with people. I had a girlfriend, and, I had a little bit of fun teaching her some stuff, and, I had fun with her using these tactics on me that was so freaking pitiful. That's how I felt. I was like, this is pitiful stuff. Like, I can't believe I used to be subject to this. I used to love this. But at the same time, the whole reason was I had my own desires, and I was basically using someone through the love bombing stage. But I did have hopes. I have hopes for people, and I have hopes. And just for me being a toxic person and being able to change and self-reflect and learning this stuff, I have that same hope and that same belief for anybody. I've seen God do it without the psychology. You know what I'm saying? I've seen Him turn people from dark to light. But even in that, so in the we'll say the recovery community, also, it's very valuable. I think it's one of the greatest things to be valued for a drug addict. And I was just explaining that to someone, like, hey, forget the drugs. Let's get to why you use drugs, because drugs is not the issue. That's just something. It's really something that you do for a lack of truth. You do it for recreation. I mean, and not everybody's the same, but I think underneath of the selfishness part of drug using using and the lack of empathy that comes with drug using. Learning narcissism will open your eyes to how hurtful your behavior is, how selfish it is. And I say that really especially for like people, for the drug addicts that go in stores and steal, or they rob people and they rob their friends. Because even before narcissism, I used to be well aware and very in tune with these scumbag behaviors. And I would watch everybody around me like that, and I'm like, I get it. I mean, we're on drugs and stuff, or whatever, but I did not have an understanding for that kind of behavior, to where just every moment it's trying to screw over the next guy. And I always wondered why what the things I did wasn't good enough to win anybody's loyalty. So, like, I would share drugs, I would do all this stuff. I thought I was the greatest, nicest drug addict. I wanted to be surrounded with people, and unfortunately, I had to choose psychopaths, basically, and treacherous people, because I used a lot of drugs, and I was probably hard to. Who else would put up with me? Because I was, I did a lot of drugs. I didn't really do it for fun, and which I meant it's supposed to be fun, but I just went to the extremes with everything. And at my extreme levels, I could adapt dark abilities to do darker things. But I had to strive for it. I had to block out my own empathy. I had to block out my feelings with this. And I would use other people, like, okay, I can't be that soft around this person. I can't, say this certain thing around these people, because they don't think like that. You know what I mean? So in my darkest times, I'm not trying to not make myself out to be innocent or nothing. I've done robberies. I've done violence. But I will say that I do not enjoy hurting people one bit, Quitting all that stuff was a long road, but it wasn't hard. The price I paid for it was long and hard, I guess. And that helped, but the psychology behind it opened my eyes to a different way. And that's why I believe, even in them darkest people, like, they can be changed, man. And even though in the natural psychology says, like, you got to flee these people, and there's a lot of it biblically. It says, don't tolerate this stuff, certain stuff, one of the high traits behind one of the top spirits behind narcissism is a Jezebel spirit. It's high, controlling, manipulative, blah blah blah, and that can be for a man or a woman. As a pastor I know says, it can be a man or a woman. And her husband was Ahab. Which was he tolerated this woman, but he also used her. I don't want to say used her. But he sat back and did cowardly things. Now, anybody that will tolerate the Jezebel spirit, basically they're going to be subject to the Ahab spirit, because they're going to have to walk on eggshells. They're going to have to change everything. They're going to have to, they can't be no dominant. You can't be too dominant. As they say, there can't be two heads. Two heads is a monster. So the Jezebel spirit, it will collide with this other, if there's another Jezebel spirit, they're probably going to collide, it's not going to work. But so, one of the things I heard, that Jezebel needs an Ahab, which is, the submissive spirit that won't go against these dark traits in this person. Ain't going to speak up to them, ain't going to stand up to them. It requires that. And with me waking up to that, I know I've been in that position, and even though that I've been in that position, I still struggle with falling into that when I'm around a person like that. Not any, but some. It depends on what's on the line, I guess. And that sucks. Because I've been in situations where there's collateral on the line that I have to put up with it. Just because I don't like my other options. My other options of, fleeing the scene are not good, I'm 10 minutes early. Yeah. So that's the fun of it. That's the gist of it, and that's my video for today. I actually did it while I was driving, That's great. So, man, I want to encourage anybody to go get your eyes open and watch that. But I haven't found it yet. I don't even know if it's out yet, but that's the name of it. Shoot. Did I even say the name of it? Mark Vicente's new documentary. The Way. It's something about the games of a narcissist, how the game is played, something to that extent. So for the people that love the narcissistic community, or we'll say they love the online freaking all them people, it's got Dr. Romney on there, Richard Grannon, Sam Vaknin. It's so crazy because I'm like, these people are so fascinating to me. I think there's a guy named Stephen Ingram, I think his name is. He's a self-aware narcissist. But I be wanting to talk to these people, like, dude. Because he's self-aware and he teaches so good about it. There's a cure, man. And I want them to connect. I see these people, I'm like, connect these pieces. And get free from this thing, stop carrying this identity, man, and reject it, I think that's great, and I feel like if they could, let go of and pick up Jesus, man, they could be saved. They could see that God is in control and he can set them free if they think they're still struggling with it, or they think that they're so hardwired in these ways. Like, man, the love of God changes things, man. You realize somebody paid a price for your sins. Let's go with the sin nature. Narcissism, everybody has some level of narcissism. So coming to Christ, understanding His love for you, and the plan He played out, the life He lived and walked on this earth. Christ, the love of God can change all of this. Everything about you. You don't have to worry about your traits. You can be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You don't have to accept that as your identity. And it's the same with drug addicts. You don't have to accept that. Like, oh, I don't want to care. I'm not a drug addict all my life, you know. For whatever parts of my life that I have been a drug addict, God has set me free many times. And my sin nature, has chosen to go back. Not because I'm an addict, it's because I have a sin nature. And drugs is just one of the darkest ones I've, in the worldview, it's one of the darkest ones I've touched, man. That's my video. I'm going to let you guys go on that, man. Check out what I'm talking about. The NXIVM Cult, Mark Vicente, Richard Grannon. And I'm going to make another video. I got some good stuff coming up on Dark Thoughts. I know I said I was going to start making some of those. And I think my next one's a pretty good one.